experiences, and then we become better. Now, under introduction here, when we get employees joining organizations in terms of getting appointed to go and work for this organization, it's because of that service that they have, that the organization had lacked, and that's why they sought them out to come and work for the organization. And seeking them out varies from organization to organization. The recruitment methods are different. There are those that you need to apply. Maybe you submit your 10 copies of your documentation, and then the long listings are done, the short listing is done, you're invited for interview, and then eventually when you're appointable, you are given a letter of appointment. In other places, there's a software where you just feed in your details, and then the software will do the elimination, will do the short listing. If you do not qualify, it cannot allow you to proceed to the next stage, and so forth and so forth. But here, all in all, we want to look at this employee that has come to the organization. They have looked at the job, the terms and conditions of service, and they have signed, they have accepted the offer, the job offer. So after they accept the job offer, it's important, it's critical for an organization, because the organization normally wants to perform and exceed its previous performance. You know, all organizations have goals, they have targets, and every time they always want to exceed where they are. And we should also remind ourselves that these organizations in which we are working in do not exist in isolation. These organizations are in competition with other organizations. So employee performance is critical, and I'll never tire saying this, because employees are the most important asset in an organization. So globalized economies have increased competition for organizations. So managers are under enormous pressure to improve performance and remain ahead of competitors. And organizations have also realized that they need to develop unique dynamic human resource capabilities that empower their sustainable competitive advantage in the ever constantly changing business environment. So in an ideal work environment, we want to look how employees are able to perform. For you as the employer, or maybe you are the head of department, or you are the HR person. And remember, when you are head of department, HR activities are pervasive, you know, for as long as you're a line manager, you're in charge of people that are working under you. Has there been anything to do with goal setting? Have you communicated to these employees that are working under you, those that are under your span of control, that this is the goal that we want to attain after a specific period of time? Now, you find in most organizations, they carry out periodical performance appraisals. Now, these performance appraisals, do you ever bother to give feedback to this employee or not? Because I know in most cases, when we are doing our own appraisal, self-appraisal, before we go discussing it with our supervisors, we always score ourselves high. Like if the maximum mark is 5, we are always giving ourselves 5, until we sit down with the supervisor and discuss that indeed this deadline, you did not meet it, so it can't be 5. Like for me, I'm a lecturer, so I say that maybe within the previous 6 months, I was supposed to have published an academic paper in a refereed journal. Then when it comes to self-appraisal, I give myself 5 marks. But when I get to the supervisor, if he or she reminds me that, you know, you need to give evidence that indeed you have published. So when I don't have that, I need to be appraised as such. So feedback is important. Role congruity, whatever that you're doing within organization, does it match the skills that you possess? Is the environment conducive enough for you to deliver onto your job activities that you've been assigned from time to time? And are the processes defined? You know, and a department cannot exist in isolation, just like organizations do not exist in isolation. So are the processes defined? I know after COVID, most organizations embraced technology. They procured softwares to run some of the internal issues within the organization. Like now, when you are applying for interest, what is the procedure? Have you bothered to inform these newcomer, within your organization, on the procedures that they're supposed to follow? And remember, On socialization, whenever you get a new employee within the organization, you carry out what we call socialization or orientation. Did you bother to give them all information about the organization or not? I know you may not do that once, for just for one time, but you may require more time to keep on telling them what what the organization expects out of them. And that now links to the supervisor support. A new employee has come to the organization. Because they were not your preferred employee, you don't even want to assign them duty. Because they are not your preferred employee, you are even looking at them with those eyes, sneering. It's like you don't want them within the organization. And yet you know so well that it's not within your means to lay them off or not to assign them duty. So we should always learn to support these new employees who have been appointed within our organization, regardless of whether we wanted them or not. It is not their mistake. They have just been appointed. Just like back at home or wherever we stay, we can't choose neighbors. So can't we also not choose the type of people that we work with? So we have to learn to embrace diversity. And then technology and tools. How conversant are we with the technological tools, with the softwares that the organization is procuring? And you're the HR, you're saying now we want to do the HR, human resource information systems. We want to have a system that collects the data on employees, that keeps the data on employees. You want to have an employee's data bank. That particular clerk that you're assigning that duty, have you taught them how to handle that particular software? And whenever you're introducing something new within the organization, like a software, did you carry out a needs assessment? Was it relevant? And after it was relevant, for you to reduce on the chances of resistance to the new thing that you want to introduce to the organization, did you sensitize the staff that are going to use that particular item or not? So the technology and tools are also important. Then lastly, here I want to look at the communication system. Is it defined? All organizations have structures. But because of modernity, we're finding that some organizations, they have embraced the flat structure. You don't need to book an appointment for you to go and see the MD, or you don't need to book an appointment for you to go and see the vice chancellor. What happens when you find somebody that works under you talking to the managing director? Will you fidget? Will you feel bad about it? Will you start victimizing that person, thinking that they are the ones now snitching on you in the department or not? So as HR professionals, we need to be conversant with this. And good thing for us, we have learned about these things, we have the people management skills, but when it comes to the ground, sometimes it becomes a bit elusive. We forget what we are supposed to be doing and start now getting into how things are done within that particular organization. And remember, if we do not change the way we operate within the organization, there is no way we'll get different results. So we need to learn to do things differently before we are able now to attain different results. Now, the employee performance here, it has remained a central issue in present-day organizations, as well as an area of concern. I teach master's students and even undergraduate students, and anytime you tell them to carry out a research, one variable must be performance, organizational performance, or employee job performance, and so forth and so forth. Why do they bother with performance? It's because it's the in thing. How do organizations compete favorably if their performance is overboard? And when it goes over the target that they had set, then we'll say that this organization has exceeded its target, and now, therefore, it could be the best in that particular area. So employee performance is an indicator which measures how well an employee accomplishes the set targets in line with their organizational objectives. This is to us, again, as human resource professionals. You see, we carry out the appraisals within the organization. Most public organizations will still use the traditional performance appraisal systems. Now, let me assume that most of us use the traditional performance appraisal systems. Do we ever bother to follow the procedure for appraising an employee or a staff? Do we ever sit down with this staff, you as a supervisor, sitting down with the staff and setting the targets for that particular appraisal period? You see, you must set the targets at the beginning of the appraisal period so that at the end of that appraisal period, now you will be checking against the targets that both of you did set. and you will agree, and those will be now legitimate or correct results the way it is required. So as a result, corporate entities, both public and private worldwide, are under tremendous pressure to ameliorate their performance. You know, we always have to think about how we are performing. We always have to measure ourselves against other organizations and how they are performing. And we should also not restrict ourselves from benchmarking. We need to also learn to benchmark with the best so that we are now able to copy the best practices, those that can be implemented in our organization. So it's not just a matter of copying everything. Copy or plan and implement what is doable within your organization. So here we come to this psychological contract. You see, when a new employee comes to the organization, they sign a letter. And for us, we say, you know, we are organizations, and a letter is binding because it was signed, and we can always have a reference. And in case of anything, we can always refer to that particular letter, and so forth and so forth. But now here is the psychological contract. Something that has been eating up, something that has been affecting the employee's job performance within organizations over time. And as you can see, I took this from Rosu. It says that a psychological contract is an individual's belief in mutual obligations between that person and another party, such as an employer. So when we're talking about mutuality, these are tacit, requirements, things that are not seen, things that are required to get from my employer without having been written down, without the employer knowing exactly what I want, because we are so many in the organizations. But if an employer or the supervisor has people management skills, they must have that particular sense of noticing that, or of knowing that. And when employees are given these letters of appointment, they've been given the personal file number, they are now working. There are other things that have not been signed for that require you as a supervisor to do for them. Now, the workplace is characterized by numerous contracts of agreement. And the main contract of agreement I've been talking about is that one that you sign. You sign to formalize that you are an employee of that particular organization. And then we cannot leave out this other informal agreement. It's also known as the psychological contract. It's often overlooked, although it's the pivotal in determining the engagement of employees in an organization. Take this scenario where you've gotten a new employee within an organization. You are the one who was in charge of, or you are among the panelists that interviewed these people to come and join your organization, but your preferred candidate was not picked. Now this one has come. They need to be assigned duty. They need to be listened to. You have already created a barrier between you and this particular employee because you never liked them from the onset, according to you. But as I said earlier on, we must learn to embrace diversity, because not everything that we want will happen the way we have wanted. Most things happen on the opposite side. So how do we go about it? How do we learn to stay or work with these people that we do not like? So the psychological contract represents the mutual beliefs, and mutual is between two parties, me and you, you and your employer. These are the mutual beliefs. In as much as we say that the moment you join an organization, your personal objectives become insubordinate to the greater organizational objectives. But still, there are things that you need to be done to for you to feel like you have been accepted within the organization, you are valuable within the organization, and you are an asset to that particular organization. So the psychological contract entails the unwritten rules that govern the reciprocal. Reciprocal is two-way social dynamics, underlying the relationship between the two parties, and they define the tasks to be completed in practical terms. Let's pick an example of a cook. If you quarrel them and give them all the ingredients to prepare a specific food, you like it or not, that food will not come out the way you anticipated. We're even going far, not even just that complicated food. Even just doing what? Preparing ugali. Yeah. If you quarrel somebody who is cooking for you, and now they go prepare that ugali for you, hakuna vile ugali itakuwa tamu, hakuna vile ugali itaiva. Why? Because when somebody is engaged in service provision, when they are doing it with a passion, you will always feel it in the product of the service that they are giving you. So this is what we're trying to say. These are the unwritten rules. And here the relationship is mutual. They have seen you treat them in a valuable manner. So they'll reciprocate by putting their best foot forward, by doing that particular task with passion, so that they give you the expected and sometimes even exceed the expected results. So while the psychological contract is informal, it is suggested that it should not be overlooked as an asset. It should not be overlooked as it sets the scene for employer-employee relationship. We like it or not, we work in formal setups, but you see the informal setups informers, the informal setups, psychers, they motivators. Like I know this week, the Arsenal supporters are very happy. Anytime they meet a new person in the corridor, they have to do something to them to make them feel bad. You see, we are all grown-ups, but the children in us has not come out. And if you ask somebody, an Arsenal supporter, do you know anyone playing in that particular club personally on an individual basis? They don't know. That is entertainment. So you'll find people who belong to different parties, like now in Kenya, Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, sometimes it may strain a relationship. And these relationships, whenever they are strained, they affect the work output of employees within the organization. So what are the needs of employees in the organization? Those ones that have not been signed for. Because when you are signing a letter of appointment, there's no way it's been indicated that the environment that you're going to work in is going to be conducive. Yeah, that the task is going to be consistent day in, day out. There are days you'll engage in technical tasks. There are days you'll engage in tasks that you use a lot of maybe sometimes psychomotor skills, energy. There are tasks you just need to sit down, to critically think, yeah, and come up with a solution. There are times you're exposed to make decisions. Ownership, that particular position that I'm holding, the designation that I'm holding, am I feeling, is it autonomous? Am I able to make decisions in that particular position? Am I proud to walk out there and tell people that I am a senior lecturer? Or because I'm seeing other younger people being professors, I say I am a professor even when I'm not a professor. And then reward, yes, reward can be financial or non-financial. The financial reward is obvious. That's what we normally sign for. You give a service, you're paid a salary, or you're paid your wages. Now, what about this other non-financial reward? You have assigned somebody a duty. It's expected that after they deliver the assignment to you, before you critique it, say thank you. Appreciate the effort that they have put in. They were mindful, they were able to do that work. And then after you appreciate, even if you started critiquing negatively, they wouldn't feel bad about it. But some of us, we give somebody an assignment to do. By the time they're bringing back, maybe they exceeded the time by 5 minutes. We start quarreling that person before we appreciate. Let me assure you, my colleagues, that appreciation will go down into the drain because it will not have any impact. Do you value this tea girl in your office? Do you value this cleaner? Some of us, tunatembea, hata hapo kwa gate, ukiingia kazini, you meet a soldier, a guard at the gate, hata hakuna salamu peke yake, fungua mlango haraka mimi nipite. Some of you unaambia, hebu chukua ikaraka nipanguze hii kiatu. Uko unaingia washroom kazini, kuna mtu anapanguza hapa, hausemi sorry, I've stepped on a wet floor. Wewe unapita tu. Kidogo tu ukianguka hivi utaanza, "Oh, why are you wiping now? You see you've made me to fall down." No, you see, learn to value the people that you work with. Why? Because all of them are important for the organization. Their contribution is important to the growth of the organization. Hiyo choo ikikuwa chafu ikinuka, hautakuwa comfortable kufanya kazi. Yeah. Na hiyo kuosha choo ndio inafanya anapewa mshahara. So whenever you smile at these people, you greet them. Whenever, there was a time a colleague told me that that the people that I supervise went and reported me to a union that I don't greet them. Was greetings part of the letter of appointment that I signed to come and do in this particular organization? You see, sometimes we just mess ourselves up by refusing to do the small things that we're just supposed to be doing. It's not part of the appointment, but now that is a psychological contract. I expect my boss to greet me. I expect my boss, okay, it's not a demand, but it's just an expectation which can be met or not. So make the employees that you work with, especially those that work under you, let them feel valuable. And I'm now saying that now those that you are horizontal with, you're on the same level with, sasa uanze kuwachukulia kimadharau madharau na wabeba ufala ufala. No, now, development. Do you ever advise anybody to upgrade themselves? You know, this particular office assistant alipata C-. Amekuwa office assistant kwa ofisi yako miaka 10. You have never told them that they can enroll in a TVET institution or they can progress, they can advance themselves. And then promotion, yeah. All organizations, they have a promotion policy, that one I know. Maybe just because of other issues that make people not be promoted. But you see, the moment someone is promoted, it is their right, yes, but they cannot take it for granted, because many people are even due for promotion and have never been promoted because of the type of leaders, the us who are in those offices as the HR people. Either we have just decided not to promote them, or we're just trying to throw our weight around so that they feel that we're the most important thing that happens in that particular organization. So these needs of the employees, I have not exhausted them. But, you know, when under discussion, we can still look at other needs that an employee, you know, other things that employee requires when they are at the place of work. Are you people still there, or I'm talking alone?
We are 31. We are 31 standing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So what are these characteristics of a psychological contract? It must be open, you know, because it's not written anywhere. Let it just be open. And when we're talking about openness, here we want to refer back to you as the HR. The buck stops with you as the head of department, as the HR. We say that you are the role model, you are the liaison person, you know, you are the, in fact, you're the figurehead of that particular department. So if you are the figurehead, you like it or not, these people that you supervise, the employees under your supervision, will always pop in from one time to another, coming to tell you about their problems, you know. Somebody will want to tell you why they are not on duty in time. Somebody will tell you how they are not comfortable with the type of assignment that you have given them. And you see, as a HR person or head of department, you need to be a good listener, you know. Listen before you make a decision. The problem that most of us have is that, you know, we also have our own biases. We also have, I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. We have our own biases. We are given information on other people by the people that don't like them. So we inherit the enemies of the other people. So we already have a preformed opinion when somebody comes to us to tell us about why they are late. Well, ushajua already, so ulikunywa jana pombe ukalala kwa mtaro, sahi unaniambia kitu kama hiyo kwa nini? You see, don't embarrass an adult. Do not embarrass an adult, not unless they decide to confide in you that way. Just listen, even when you know the truth, and operate with what they are telling them. That is the mutuality that we're talking about. It has to also be balanced. And the balancing, normally, this one, we are sorted out when we use policies consistently. Because the policies will help us, the policies will help us to make consistent decisions, you know, over issues that are occurring within the organization. We are not going to use personal discretion. Policies help us to be objective. And another characteristic of our psychological contract, it has to be meaningful. Meaningful as in it is attached to the duty or to the job designation of that particular job holder. So it's important because even for us who are human resource managers, we are also answerable to some level. So we also expect them to do for us whatever we want to do to those that are junior to us. Now, sometimes we find the psychological contract going wrong. Number one is, you know, when you promise to increase somebody's pay and it was not fulfilled. And this one, you may say that it's beyond you because, you know, maybe the government doesn't have money, or a public institution, the government doesn't have money. But under an ideal circumstance, under an ideal circumstance. If your policy stipulates that you need to promote people after 3 years, or when they upgrade themselves, you need to also, while budgeting, to be present as the HR person, so that as you are approving the budget for the organization, you also need to put in a word for some amount to be slated for promotion, to cater for promotion. I think that is not too much to ask from us people who are human resource persons. But what I know is that most of us, we don't want to get engaged, involved even in at the time of budgeting, because we think it's an issue of finance. But remember, even if it's an issue of finance, we have voted, we have different vote heads. What will you utilize if you do not attend this particular committee that's trying to pass the budget? Promotion, a promised promotion doesn't happen in the expected time frame. You're always singing, there are no funds, there are no funds. No, did you plan for it? And after you had planned for it, did you now realize that there were no funds? And when did you realize that there were no funds? Was it because you never attended that particular budgeting committee, is it because you never put in a word? Or is it because when they're developing the strategic plan, you were never involved, or what? You see, no, for us as HR, some things could be beyond us, but we can do our part up to some level, and then we escalate it to the powers that be. And then another thing is the type of work. Important responsibilities of employees were misrepresented. Some of us, we send those people, the tea girls and the office assistants, to go wash our cars. Sometimes we send them to run our errands back at home. Or sometimes we just sit in the office and then they just start. Now we start telling them stories, their work is stalling, and here we are. Because, when you are up there, you are alone. When you're a HR manager, you are alone up there, nobody comes to greet you. And I know most of you, because you love working with people, you have a passion of working with people. Usipopiga stories kumoja, unasikia uchungu sana, unaona kama maisha inaisha. So you don't know that you are wasting this other person's time, but you're just engaging them in something that is not relevant to what they are supposed to be doing. Trainings also, it still boils down to the budget. Now, the budget that you had, did you secure some funds for the trainings to happen? And remember, these trainings is not just about the funds available within the organization. Sometimes somebody just requires you to give them an opportunity to attend their own training because they can fund for themselves. Can you give them time to attend these particular trainings or not? Feedback, promised performance reviews were inadequate or absent. I had already talked about this one. You need to give feedback whenever you are carrying out an appraisal. You need to give feedback. And whenever somebody has not performed that particular duty the way it was required, you also need to give them feedback so that they're able to improve next time. So here we want to look at the steps. I want to learn from the best. We want to look at the steps involved in developing psychological contract. Number one, define expectations during recruitment and induction programs. The type of terms and conditions that have been stipulated in that particular letter that you are giving to somebody, to the appointee, will determine the type of expectations. Yeah. Like I remember when I started working, I was working as an admin. And then because of the privately sponsored programs, I used to do the academic staff earning a lot of money from PSSP. I moved to teaching. When I got there, it dried. So was I to go back to administration or not? So my expectations were not met. But you see now, these expectations were just for me. I couldn't blame it on any other person. You should be careful when the expectations are supposed to land on your desk. It's you to meet the employees' expectations. So you need to communicate and agree expectations as part of the continuing dialogue that is implicit in good performance management practices. Now this time you're sitting down and giving out instructions. Have a discussion. Listen to this particular person. Most of us, when you meet us, sometimes we just want a greeting. Most of us, when you meet us, sometimes we just want an ear to listen to what we are talking about. Hata kama ni matope tunataka tu ufanye nini? Utusikize. The fact that you took your 2 minutes or 1 minute or 10 minutes to listen to me, you see, it has already communicated to me that you are a good-natured person, that you value me as a person within the organization. Wewe umepita mtu ameinama hapo kwa corridor, na unapita tu unaenda, hata haujali, na unamjua yeye ndiye amekupikia chai yenye unaenda kwa ofisi kukunywa. You don't even ask them what is up with them. You need to adopt a policy of transparency on company policies and procedures and on management's proposals and decisions as they affect people. Good thing most organizations have embraced technology, and most of this is being done, the policies have been posted on the organizational website. Everyone can access them at any one given time. And anytime they have an issue, they can always raise it up with other people, the concerned parties. It's good. But some organizations have hidden those particular policies. Ignorance is not a defense, but as HR people, have we relayed this information? Have we provided this have we given out these particular policies? Are they accessible to the members of staff or not? And then generally treat people as stakeholders relying on consensus and cooperation rather than control and coercion. You're the HR person, you've called for a meeting. You're speaking from the beginning to the end. In fact, the only thing that you don't do is say prayer. You start the meeting and you say, so-and-so, can you say a prayer for us? And then you go to agenda 1, agenda 2, agenda 3, agenda 4, and then you conclude, and then you ask another person to close the meeting with a word of prayer. There you're treating people as non-existent. But when you treat people as stakeholders, everyone that works in your organization has an interest in that particular organization. So when you're in a meeting, open it up, let them discuss, be the final person to conclude on an agenda item, direct the meeting to move to another agenda item, open it up, let it be discussed by each and every person that has attended the meeting, so that people do not feel like they're space fillers. They only came so that you have a quorum for the meeting. Now, what we conclude about this psychological contract, it is based on employee sense of fairness and trust. Are you fair? Are you trustworthy? Do you feel that your organization is fair to you? Do you feel that your organization trusts you? And you believe that the employer is honoring the deal between you? Yeah. Do you think so? Okay, sometimes the employer may not honor the deal between the both of you all the time because of other factors. But whenever it is possible, as human resource people, are we able to do our best and then escalate what is beyond us to the powers that be, so that it's taken over from there? Whenever we sit in that boardroom and we're advising on people management, do we ever make objective decisions? Okay, sentiments, we pass objective sentiments about the people that are working in the organization or not? Ama unanyamaza tu unasema mkubwa ndiye amesema, my job is at stake, sitaongelelea watu hapa sijui nini. You are the one letting our profession down, because anybody working in human resource management, they have a passion for people. And even if you're not working in human resource management, anytime you have people that are working under you, you must have a passion for them, for you to serve them the way it is expected. A violation or breach of the psychological contract by the employer can have sudden and powerful consequences for people and organizations. This is now where we have what we call ghost law. Yeah. Wewe unaambia watu wafanye kazi yenye unajua hiyo kazi ulikuwa umepangia waende retreat. Sasa unasema hiyo retreat hakuna, hii kazi mnafanyia hapa kwa organization. Sasa kila siku unapata bado wako tu kwa introduction. Hiyo ni ghost law, hiyo ni ghost law. And you see it has negative consequences to the organization, because maybe you want to meet a target. If you were to work from maybe outside the organization, and then maybe the conditions did not accept, communicate to the people in time. Yeah. Some of us, we act like politicians. We are always promising, and none of those promises are made. Alafu unasema, nilikuambia wapi, wacha hiyo uongo. Mimi sikukuambia vitu kama hizo. Let's try to stick to the rules and the regulations. Now, what do we recommend for our organizations currently? At the end of the day, the psychological contract is the responsibility of both the employee and the employer, because we say that it's a mutual relationship, and both have the separate responsibilities to guard against potential breaches. And how can an employee guard against a potential breach? Allow them to discuss that issue with you. You see, they say that I expected, you send me to place A, B, C, D. This was my expectation. How come it was not done? Don't be harsh. Explain to them in a calm manner, and they'll still do what? They'll still understand. And then for the employer, it's about making sure you not to give the wrong perception to an employee. Don't ever give them a wrong perception that they are not required within the organization. Because however qualified they are, whenever they realize that you show them that particular perception of not being required as an entity within the organization, they are not going to perform. and they're going to become a liability to the organization. And for the employees, it's about managing the expectations so that difficult situations or adverse personal circumstances are not seen as negatively impacting on productivity and are not seen as worker acting out. Let's have some level of trust in the people that work under us. Hata kama jana wewe ulimuona, sijui pia ulikuwa unaenda wapi, ukamwona alikuwa amelewa, alafu leo amekuja asubuhi, wacha kumkumbusha vile alikuwa amelewa jana. Wewe haujui ni nini ilifanya hata alikuwa amelewa jana. Pengine alikuwa tu anatembea, rafiki yake akamuita, akaenda akamnunulia. Or maybe sometimes people go to drink because they want to drown in their sorrows. You see, there's no way you can separate us from our social life and our working life. We are just but the same thing. But because we are adults, we always learn to balance it out. So when we are trying to balance it out in our own best way, can we have an ounce of trust in us? Can you have an ounce of trust in us? Because I know even if I came and lied to you that I was late because of ABCD, the next day I'll just be forced to tell you the truth, because I realize that whenever I tell you my truth, you don't go preaching it to other people who are not with us when I was discussing that truth with us. Colleagues, that is the end of the presentation, and I'm really appreciative that you have listened to me. Kindly, let's discuss and see the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ri, for that good presentation. As you're doing presentation and making reference, I just had my colleagues laugh from the other side, meaning that there are some things I've been doing that they're not telling me. That was a good presentation. I wish to invite colleagues who have attended this discourse to have their views, maybe questions, answers, their view on what has happened, the entire presentation. The floor is open, colleagues. If you have something, you can tell us. Comment, compliment, questions, concerns.
Chair, I've read the comments in the chat section.
Yeah.
I'm humbled. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Enane.
Yes, Dr. Ri, that is a very good presentation. It's very timely, and it helps us to think outside the box. That when we have given a formal letter of engagement to an employee, then we don't just stop there. That we have to look beyond there. And I like the statement you made almost at the beginning, that the psychological contract should not be overlooked. And then there's something you said also at the end, that the psychological contract is a responsibility of both the employee and the employer. That is, for me, that is very good. I mean, it really hits home, because sometimes you may think that it is the employer only who is concerned, but we are talking about a relationship between two people, things that have not been written down. But these things which have not been written down can easily affect the performance of an employee, and eventually also spill to the overall effectiveness of an organization. Thank you very much. I don't have a question, just a comment. I'm really happy with the presentation.
Thank you so much, Madam.
Thank you very much, Madam Enane. Any other?
Hi, Chairman.
Yes,
Hi,
yes. Namai.
Yes, sir. How are you all?
Fine.
Are you getting me?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chairman, for this opportunity. It has been a good one indeed. You know, psychological contract is very critical to an organization. And I want to join others in congratulating Madam Dr. Laura for coming up with a very clear presentation to remind us of this psychological contract. At a work setup, ideally, a psychological contract connotes something for something. An employee has to perform so that the organization has also to reciprocate. So what does the organization expect from the employee? And at the end of the day, what are the expectations of the employee towards the organization? That one is what now brings the psychological contract, because the organization is expecting the employee to be loyal. How do you reciprocate that as an organization? You provide an opportunity, you now make good use of the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivators so that you have to entrench an autonomous working environment that fully harnesses the potential of this particular employee. Ideally, within a work setup, we have the workforce, and workplace. So how is the employer integrating these three things to ensure that this employee, who is the worker, is psychosocially settled to perform? How is the work? Is it meaningful? Is it rewarding? Are they providing meaningful opportunity for growth, development, and advancement? And apart from that one, how is the working environment? And then apart from that one, how is the work itself, the work environment, and the opportunities that the organization is providing in place to reciprocate the contribution of the employee? Dr. Laura has hinted that the organization makes its directives, or rather makes its position about the pay, and this one is articulated on the employment contract. But at the end of the day, the organization has also its policies on growth, pay, performance management, and what have you. So is the organization sticking to what it promised this particular employee at the first instance? So I find this presentation quite timely. It has been quite informative, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this. So let us remain true to our promises as HR professionals. Let us create an environment that can harness the full potential of these particular employees as we seek to engage them so that they can be loyal. And as they are loyal, we assure them of job security and opportunity for growth, achievement, and advancement. Otherwise, thank you so much, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Namai. I am seeing potential here. I need to recruit you so that you do a presentation the next time.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comment?
Chair,
Yes.
there's a question that has been posed to all in the chat. I think you can handle that.
Okay. How do you as the HR balance between expectation of the employees and that of the management? This one can go back to the plenary so that we have a discourse. Madam Menane?
Yes, I was just thinking that when we talk about a psychological contract, it's actually not something that is formal, but it is in the informal organization, just like culture. Okay, so culture is not something you can touch. It's not something, there are some norms, there are some standards, there are some expectations, just like in the psychological contract. So in my view, if as a HR, in fact, I had just written here that how do we promote? We are in HR, and we have noticed that our organization is very formal. Our managers, our supervisors are very formal in the way that they are doing their work. So we must create a training which should at least enlighten the organization, the managers probably alone, and then the employees alone, and we can do it as an organizational training. But it is done in such a way that everybody gets what is supposed to do. And I remember when I was in a certain organization, to change culture, we were actually taken through a culture change. So for us to introduce these aspects that Daktari has talked about into the organization, because we are talking about a relationship between the employee and the employer. So for us to be able to see these norms, which are not written, but they are there, we need to create them. We need to have everybody come on board so that by the time now we are having new employees coming on board. Already, these norms, these expectations already are at the workplace. I think that is what I would say. To be able to balance management and employees, I think you need to actually do a training that will help everybody appreciate the relationship. And in appreciating the relationship, what goes along with making sure that this relationship works. It's not just the paper that we had, but there's something else on top of that paper that binds us together.
Wow, that's quite insightful. Very, very
Chairman,
insightful.
Can I give my insight? This is Peter speaking.
Yes, you can, Peter.
Thank you so much. John has asked a very critical question here, because you find as HR, you recruit someone. After a span of 3 months, this person comes with a contingent of expectations. You recruited him to earn around 50,000. After around maybe the probationary period, this employee feels that he's doing a lot. According to what Dr. Laura has presented, as a psychological contract, the employee has to perform and the employer has to pay. When the employee performs, the employer reciprocates by performing, and leveraging the 3 W's I've talked about: the work, workforce, and workplace. So how do we as HR professionals balance between expectations of the employees and that of management? We as the HR guys, we are the custodians of policies, practices, procedures, and philosophies that guide our workmanship. So in line with the philosophies that guide us, we need to make them clear at the entry level, that in as much as this employee is having these particular expectations, we have to take this employee through the interview process. After prospectively arriving at the best candidate, you articulate whatever the organization expect this particular employee to stand for and to deliver, so that the organization, in the other hand, can reciprocate by offering the extrinsic factors or intrinsic factors. So management needs to do this, as CHRP Nane has said, to offer an opportunity of explanation, to create that autonomous environment whereby an employee can articulate issues, share issues with management. They embrace an open door policy. In the event that this employee is feeling infringed for doing a lot of work, and yet the reciprocation by management through pay is minimal, they can have a negotiation and a discussion and arrive at a mutually beneficial agreement that will be beneficial to the employee and to the employer. I'm currently in another setup whereby a certain guy was recruited after just 1 year contract. The contract is bound to be renewed this month. The guy has come with a contingent of explanation that his job description has changed, he's covering a lot, so he wants the organization to pay, because he assumes that he's doing a job for 3 people. So he wants the organization at least to have a salary increment and also have other inducements like airtime at the workplace. So ideally, this one has happened because there has been lack of making the job description clear to this employee, explaining critically the stand of the organization, the policies that govern, and at the end of the day, the pertinent question here is the ability to pay. What is so critical is about the pay issue, because an employee reaches somewhere and believes that he's doing a lot, but what he's getting is minimal. So the organization has to explain through consistent communication and creating an environment of open door policy and issue-based leadership and strategic-based leadership, whereby issues, before they encroach within an organization, they are ironed out and solved amicably at the right time. So at the end of the day, the employee is satisfied and the organization is also satisfied, because what the organization needs to offer, it has to have the ability, capability, and the financial muscles to reciprocate according to the employees' expectations. Thank you for that opportunity, Chair.
Thank you very much, Namai. I'll weigh in that sometimes when we're doing the contractual aspect in terms of the appointment letters, during the onboarding processes, we forget that aspect of the psychological input from both the employer and the employee. And that's how we get it very wrong as HR professionals. So I urge all of us that during the onboarding, that's when the psychological contract is supposed to be taught or told, and the culture of the institution is also brought on board, so that all of us are in tandem with where we are headed together as both employer and the employee. Dr. Laura, that was a very, very insightful presentation and well thought out, as you heard from our colleagues, that it was timely. I really wish to appreciate you and for standing in always when we call you to do that. Members, before I let Dr. Laura to leave, I want to request you that we, in the next, should be around 14 days or in a fortnight, we need to have another presentation. These presentations are not done by the Ihrm branch. It is requested. So if you feel that you have a topic, and a good one for that matter, that we need to discuss as members of the Western branch, you can liaise with me, or you liaise with our Vice Chair Lynette, or you liaise with our Treasurer Osi, or you liaise with Dr. Ooko, so that we have these presentations almost on a daily basis. I can see a hand, Dr. George Ooko.
Thank you, Chair. I was worried that is ending, and I have one pertinent question to ask Daktari.
Yes, please go ahead.
Daktari, thank you for the moving presentation. Maybe to educate me a bit, Daktari, we know that psychological contract, normally it's basically unwritten, and a bit it is intangible agreement, and it forms part of the mental processes that take place in the employee's mind, maybe there's expectation and what they want organization to do for them. So most of the time, Daktari, this contract, since it is not an employment contract, which is written, it is sometimes unenforceable, and an employee, if the expectations are not met, they cannot argue their case in a court of law. So maybe I'd like to hear from you, your take as far as psychological contract is unwritten, and it cannot be enforced by the court of law. Again, bear in mind that most psychological contracts, if they are unwritten, and you know the nature of employees' needs and wants. Some of them are recurring, some of them you cannot completely satisfy. So maybe, Dr. you educate us that employee have several expectations. Some are even beyond.
Okay, thank you, Dr. and all the participants. Your contributions are good, and they are enriching even the work that I had prepared. No, Dr. I don't know at what point you joined the the workshop, but basically when the psychological contract is unwritten and it's an intangible agreement, you see, we can't take it to a court of law. But you see, as HR professionals, we are looking at things that make employees to perform at the place of work. What is it that motivates an employee to work? In addition to that particular formal contract, in addition to their superior qualifications that they hold, what else can you do to an employee to motivate them, to arouse the desire for them to work and even exceed the expectations? You know, we want to look at it like whenever, okay, when we were growing up, whenever you'd be given some food by your parents, you know, especially that is now your mom. Sorry for those who don't have moms now, it's just an example. You would eat and say, thank you, you would appreciate. Appreciating was not something that was mandatory but it's expected out of you that you do what? You appreciate. Umeenda mahali hata umepikwa chakula, ulikula ilikuwa mbaya, lakini mpaka lazima useme nini? Useme asante. So that now next time when you go back, maybe they'll have corrected the problem that they had. Now back to the HR and the place of work. It's unwritten, yes. But what is it that you can do on top of the written one that the employees have, in the written contract that employees have, that will arouse the desire for them to work? Research has been carried out. You see, we are not working in organizations that are just isolated. We are working in organizations that are also in competition with others. And that's why most of us are bothering to be ISO 9001 2015 certified. It's because we want to show the world that our services are to a particular standard. We are meeting the universal standard. So, you carry out research and we realize that every employee is placed correctly in their job positions. They are well engaged, but still you're not meeting the targets. What could be the other reason? Then the other reason now comes in, it's you breaching the psychological contract. And then how do we mitigate the breach of this psychological contract? Timely communication. Provide information to these employees in time. Don't give promises that you are not going to meet. Those street you meet somebody on the corridors and then you promise them something, you don't do such like things. Can you have some order? And for you as a HR person, a question was posed, and then how do you balance between the employees and the employer? The HR person, by the way, you are the bridge. You should not disappoint the employees and you should not disappoint the management. And how do you do that? During policy development, did you ensure that there was public participation? Did you, when you do public participation by involving these employees in developing these policies, they'll feel part of that particular process and they'll be responsible, they'll be accountable. They'll say that now we are valued in this organization and that's why our voice matters. You see, that one is already enough for somebody. And I also appreciate the fact that I agree with you. There is no way you can meet people's needs in organizations. They are always varied. In fact, when people nowadays apply for job positions, they could be having almost 3 qualifications, but now they only produce the qualification that meets that particular job, and it could be a job of a lower level. After 2 months, anakutolea degree. After 3 months, anakutolea masters. After 6 months, anakutolea PhD, and they demand that they need to do what? To be promoted to fit into the position whose qualifications they do what? They have. As a HR, that should not give you stress. Why? Check them back to that particular advert. This is what was advertised. These were the documents that you did what? That you provided for us, and according to this document, you met this particular qualification. Because you see, if we are to listen to these employees' demands again too much, the other side is going to suffer. The side of the management is also going to do what? To suffer. But if we have policy that has been developed and is consistently used, and these policies have been made accessible to the members of the organization, because we also want to treat the disease of ignorance. You see, ignorance has no defense. But if somebody knows that they're supposed to be operating within this particular given rules and regulations, indeed, they're going to work through that. So we cannot finish the problems that we have, even in our own homes. You work so hard to buy a plot, you buy, and then you go again. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you see, we are all at different levels in that particular hierarchy of Maslow. So there's no way we'll ever do that. But what we can do as HR is to know what can help us treat the problem of non-performance within our workplaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ladies and gentlemen, I will beg that we end the session. But before then, I was putting it out to colleagues that if you have a topic and you feel that you need to share with us, you prepare your slides and share with the branch leadership so that we can be able to slot you and have this webinar in a fortnight, so that we keep engaging. We've taken some time to start engaging. So I request that we have some of the engagements, and I do not want to go away from the membership that we have, so that we are sharing among ourselves. But if you feel that you have someone else who has the different experts that support HR, you can also refer them to us so that we are able to blend all these other professions and to move together as a profession. Without much ado, I'd wish to ask my colleagues, that is, I've seen Lynette, the Vice Chair, Ihrm Western, to say something. Lynette.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here. Dr. Laura, thank you so much. That has been a very insightful presentation. It has kept our minds alert. The issues of psychological contract, the unwritten agreement, the way you've taught us. These are things that we do, but we've never really thought of them as being important as professional mostly. And for me, it has really awakened my mind as a professional to keep thinking where I work here, where I work. How do I make the psychological contract? How is it working? You know, I've just been thinking. And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I've also received some congratulations for your presentation from my friends. They are not really members, you know, I put it audio loud for a group of us here. And they've really appreciated some of my colleagues here for your presentation.
Thank you.
Really appreciate. Yeah, we really appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I saw Mama Nyawes. Mama Nyawes, you can say something. Madam Patricia, Council Member Nyanza Western and Transmara. Mama Nyawes.
Chair, if you have a minute, I wanted to say something.
Dr. Maurice Hayota, you can say something, sir.
Thank you. One, I want to start by appreciating the presenter. It gives hope to the profession of human resource, for the professionals there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just raise one or two issues. Sorry, I came in late, then I had a problem with the connectivity. Now, I'm the founding chairman of the Human Resource Professional Examination Board.
Yes.
I also come from Western.
Yeah, sure.
Having said that, I think the issues here is that some of the challenges the profession is facing is because of where we're coming from. One, when we used to have initial profession of personnel management, HR was not, the human aspect was not treated the way it's supposed to be. That human approach was missing out. And basically it's because the initial managers, you know, those days they could advertise a position like finance and administrative manager. And mostly the people who came on board were those who had done finance, and it was assumed to also qualify to handle the HR aspect, which was dumped under administration. It is something that professionals have to think about and make sure that you stand up and be counted as human resource professionals, so that when you come across an ad about finance and administration, there is a lacuna in that normally affects the HR aspect. The other issue is that listening to Madam Laura, maybe the question is that why can't we learn from other departmental heads? If you look at a marketing manager, the way they will go about, you know, making sure that the product fits or meets the requirements out there, they go all out. The production managers on the production lines, they will make sure that the product they're working on must meet, again, the requirements out there. Not to mention the accountant who will hang on money that the marketer will have brought in or the human resource will have brought in. But more importantly, why do we have unions, for example? The union represents a gap between staff representation before management. And these are questions we need to answer as professionals. The union come in, or members, much as is by law, but they come together to take on the institution because they believe the issue not being addressed adequately by the professionals who are supposed to be doing that. is something that we need to think about. Madam Laura talked about policies. Some of us, when we have policy guidelines, these are classified documents. People are not supposed to touch them. People are not supposed to see them. And yet these documents are supposed to be hung all over so that people know what guides them as employees. And it makes work of a professional easier because then they know, like when you're talking about you came in with a certificate, it should be very clear. It should not even come up with an issue. But because we also keep or hang on these guideline documents, that's why we end up having these issues. I think the challenge is that the future is very bright for the profession, but we still have to ask ourselves a few questions as to why there is still issues in workplace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. That was very insightful. I want to let you know that indeed the IHRM, the profession of human resource has really transformed. And you nowadays, when you see most adverts, they have brought another aspect. Initially, it was finance and administration, but nowadays they have brought another aspect. They say corporate and support services, so that they want to ensure that the deputy director human resource reports to that corporate support services. But the institute is really working hard to ensure that such lagunas are properly addressed. I also wish to congratulate you for having been the founder of the IHRM PEB. We are really having so many of our professionals who are taking those exams and those who are graduates. You have done a fantastic job. I have just seen that you are from our region. We really take pride in that. Thank you, sir. Madam Patricia? If Madam Patricia is not there, I would request Dr. Jojo Oko to give us a word of prayer and then we close.
Thank you, Chair, also for giving me this chance.
Abraham, I just come back. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes,
yes.
Yes,
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, Chairman.
Yes.
Somehow I got disconnected, but when I came back, I just heard you mentioning me. So members, thank you so much. What I would like to say is that I think I didn't manage to go through the whole session, but I think I'll listen to it online so that I understand what Dr. Laura has taken us through. But I believe and trust that that was a very insightful. The little that I've got was very insightful, and the members' contributions have also equally been very insightful. So thank you so much, members, for attending. And I heard you talking about maybe a fortnight. We can even look for a way where we just share ideas, even on weekly basis, so that we don't really lose touch with each other. Because after COVID, we have lost a lot of touch with each other. And then finally, we are also having the Western Congress.
Yeah.
From 22nd, I think, 22nd to 24th in Kakamega, in Kisumu.
In Kisumu.
The Nyanza Congress.
Yes.
So I'm requesting members for us also to ensure that our profession is operating well and we have been given this opportunity in our region. It is my request that we participate as much as possible. There are some policies that we have also worked on as a council and might go through public participation. We really request that you participate and give your input so that at the end of the day, we have a document that has incorporated all our efforts. So otherwise, let's move on this note. Let's continue interacting. Let's continue challenging us so that we are also able to ensure that we deliver to the members. Otherwise, Happy New Year, although it is already late. And I believe and trust that from today, we are going to move on in a positive direction, an environment of learning, supporting each other so that we can grow as a profession. So thank you so much, members, for your input.
Thank you, Madam Nyawes. That is a very good one.
For the presentation.
All right. That is my boss. Now my boss has given direction. So George, I will request that you pray because our boss has spoken. George? George, Lynette, pray. George has maybe had issues with network.
Okay, Chair, you've nominated me to pray?
Yes, sure.
Okay, we can believe, and as I pray, Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, this afternoon, we thank you, Lord, for the session that we've had. We thank you, Father, for the facilitator of the session. We continue to pray that you may continue giving her the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from above. Father, we thank you for all the HR professionals in the country and even in Western. We pray that, Lord, that even as we provide services as HR professionals, may you continue guiding us. May you continue imparting to us the knowledge, the wisdom, and understanding from above, Lord, as we lead people under us, O dear King of Glory. Father, Lord, may you continue empowering us in our careers and in our profession. We continue to pray for IHRM body, that you continue, that you bless the leadership of IHRM to higher levels, O dear King of Glory. Father, we thank you even as we depart to our various homes. May your blood continue covering us. It is in your holy name do we pray and believe. Amen.
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 Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you.
Dr. Laura, you will share the slide so that I share with the members.
Okay, thank you so much and bye.
All right.
Bye.
I thank you, Chair. I was held up, but I'm okay now.
I've prayed.